them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown a mind. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets, it's my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shit sink in. We are bursting through the barricades, reaching for the sun.
Hey there, folks. Ben and Bryce here. Looking forward to putting on this MoneySMARTS 2.0 webinar. We're going to start very, very shortly. We're going to kick off in about 2 minutes, folks. But what we'd like you to do is in the comments, if you could just leave the details of where you are tuning into this webinar today. We'd love to see that. And later on, we've got some prizes to give out.
Prizes? Freebies?
Freebies. We've got worth $297 for folks who are prepared to give us some feedback in the comments later. So let's kick it off. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
More music.
To be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets, it's my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shit sink in. We are bursting through the barricades, reaching for the sun. That's what we do. Won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. Oh, yeah,
All right, folks, Bryce Holdaway, he is Ben Kingsley. We are very excited about presenting tonight's Money Smarts 2.0 webinar, and we've got lots to get into, haven't we, mate?
We are live, and it's such a privilege to be here with you tonight, and thank you very much for your time. It's obviously a very, very big moment for us. If we think about when we set up Money Smarts all the way back in early 2010, 2011, with the great late Michael Pope, we did all this excellent work in terms of trying to grab the best money management solutions from the subject matter expertise that we had amongst our advisory business. And we think we've built a no BS money management system that you can use that takes less than 10 minutes a month to operate, 10 minutes. And then ultimately it's all on the Moorr platform. So we've also digitized it and put it in the cloud for you. So hopefully at the end of the presentation, you'll see that. So we do want to welcome back a few of our people. We've got some hardcore Money Smarts users. You know who you are. Shout out to us. Give us a like in terms of the work that you do. We've got some people coming along. I know through some of my own emails that I received today that there's a few people that started using Money Smarts, but now they want to re-engage with it. And also we've got some brand newbies here today. So welcome to you also. If you're brand new and you're thinking about starting a money management system, well, we're here to tell you that Money Smarts is the only system that you need to operate. So we are looking forward to getting into it. So
we are, Ben. Now, we are very strategic at this time of the year to get you pre-Christmas so that you can set up your money management system at a very strategic time of the year. But what I want you to do is make sure you stick around to the very end because we are giving away some freebies worth $297. And the way that you can get that, Ben, is for anyone who's participating with the questions throughout the webinar.
We want questions at the end of the show.
So stick around to the end and see how you can get that. But we've got a lot to cover. We've got a mountain of educating to do. We are so excited about Money Smarts 2.0. But here's what we're going to be covering off in this live webinar today. So the life-changing importance of good household money management. What money management solutions are out there? Why do we suggest that ours is the one you should consider? Have we looked at all the others? We're going to cover that. We're going to do the best of the rest built into the Money Smarts system. We're also going to show you how that's in the Money Smarts platform. We're very, very excited, and we've got a very special guest today to help unveil this, the Money Smarts 2.0, which has the integration with MyFinancials and some of the new features. And we're also going to show you what's actually next. So just have a little look over the hill to see what's coming up.
Pathway and more.
And folks, stick around for those Q&A. So again, if you put your questions in the chat channel, we will have, for anyone who puts a question in the chat channel, anyone who comments, we will have some freebies at the end. And also we'll reveal some more bonus stuff, Ben.
Mate, well done. Let's get started. So really what we're trying to do here is part of the community that we love and we want to build out and we want to transform financially towards financial peace is we've set up the Moorr platform with its origins all in Money Smarts and a little humble thing that we used to call the My Wealth portal many, many years ago. Well, that has blossomed into the Moorr platform today. And it is an all-in-one, easy-to-use financial and property management platform. We love our property investor community that's also out there. And so that is what we're talking about here in terms of that. So let's just go through some of the pillars, the 4 pillars that make up the platform. So one is lifestyle by design. That is all about planning to become what you plan to become and using the goals section that's available inside the platform. Then we move into the money management. If you don't manage the money, you can't trap the surplus. If you don't trap the surplus, you can't buy the investment property. And if you can't buy the investment property, you can't build the wealth. And so they are the pillars. That's what everything in terms of the tools, the features, all of the things that integrate inside the platform here today. And look, it is maturing. It is not only in a web app, it's also in a mobile app environment as well. And so we've got all these rich insights in terms of what we do.
And the Moorr web app is going to takes you to that next level of running and managing your household finances. So our platform has more tools and features than any other Australian-made PFM, Ben, personal finance property management app on the market. And it's built by property investors for property investors in a way to trap and manage your money. So we've got purpose-built tools for managing your money. We've got extensive historical tracking on multiple levels, and we've got expanded dashboards. So we understand that we've got it's a subject that's really interesting where people want to be on top of their money, but quite often they don't actually want to do the work to be on top of their money. So we've got to be conscious of that. So we've made it simple, straightforward, with lots of powerful insights so people can actually do it. As the book says, Ben, on the cover, it says in less than 10 minutes a month. So Moorr is really built to help you achieve more. And for us, of those 4 pillars that Ben put up on the previous slide, the most important one is living lifestyle by design. All the other 3 dovetail into that very first vision of what it's all about in the first place.
That they do. And we were talking about money as the focus for this live session tonight here. So I want to talk about the money tools that are available and the relationship with MoneySMARTS as part of the overall Moorr family of tools. So when we first built it, Bryce, MoneySMARTS was at the core, but we have re-engineered it where now we have MyFinancials at the core. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that later. But we've got these great money tools. We've got MoneySMARTS, we've got MoneyFit, and we've got MoneySTRETCH. So let's just give you the reasons why we've got those particular tools. So the MyFinancials area, which is now the core, gives us the ability to tailor solutions. And that means we can do both money, wealth tracking, insights, and managing those finances. The second part of that is the MoneySMARTS system, which is now a component of the overall Moorr platform, which is around money management. Then we've got MoneyFit in there as well, which is about a peer assessment and comparison to other households to see exactly how you're spending compared to your peers. And then finally, the MoneySTRETCH tool, if you're new to the platform, is about cash flow modeling scenarios. So you can take a snapshot of your current position, put it over into the sandbox and have a play around with it and look at what certain things, if you want to start a family, going down to one income, if your mortgages are going up, can you keep affording it? So all of those rich tools are available free of charge inside the Moorr platform. But tonight's focus is very much on MoneySMARTS. And so why is it so important for us, Bryce? Like, what is the story here around these life-changing importance around healthy money management?
Well, you just went through some really powerful stuff, Ben, that we're going to unpack throughout this presentation, this webinar tonight. Just even MoneyFit alone or MoneySTRETCH, you could talk for quite some time about any of those features. Yes. But look, we think that most money management gets derailed around unconscious spending.
We do.
And it's typically not the big purchases that get people in trouble. It's actually the seemingly insignificant purchases that get people in trouble. It's the tap and pay economy. It's the
bit of retail therapy.
$15 here, the $17 there, the $22 here. So we think that healthy money management makes sure that you stop unconscious spending. It helps you make better decisions because of the financial awareness that you have around that. Clearly, if you can increase your savings and put that, if you've got some bad debt, credit cards, or even if it's good debt, you can start to put that to work. There's less stress and anxiety. Let's be honest. The state of the mind, state of the wallet plays with the state of your mind.
It's in our book.
Unfortunately, money is the number one reason why relationships are under enormous stress. So that's improved physical health. So we take away that stress, the confidence that comes from that, giving you an idea of what your North Star is, having a look over the hill, having a peek around the corner to see what the future looks like. And for a lot of people, no matter, it's interesting, the research suggests doesn't matter what generation group you are in, everyone worries about will they have enough money for retirement. So this gives that number one goal of financial security. And we said it before, Ben, but we'll say it again, living lifestyle by design.
It's seriously obvious, Bryce, in all of the research on this matter, that if you can get in control of your money and feel like you're in control of it rather than it controlling you, the reality is that you are going to be better off, not only from less stress and anxiety, but that whole confidence, and being able to, what I love about the preparedness for the future is really strong in terms of taking advantage of those more opportunities as well. So it starts with effective money management and having a rules-based money management system. Now, that is also a very good segue into other money management solutions.
So we're going to go around the grounds here, folks. And, in terms of, before we actually go why we think Moorr is the number one option for you to create lifestyle by design and manage your money, let's have a look at some of the other alternatives that are out there. So if you go to the classic budget, what's the best feature of that? Well, it has a 12-month window, right? Perhaps not much else. And that's why we have a view that budgets alone just don't work. They need a supporting system. And the other option is the 50, 30, 20 option, where you allocate some for needs, some for wants, and some towards savings. And this is actually a really good to get you thinking about, okay, what do I need versus what do I want? The next one is your grandparents. And they didn't get much wrong. And to be honest, Ben and I love the envelope jar system. We've actually created a 21st century digital version of the jar system. But basically what it's saying is, once you've run out of cash in your jar or in your envelope, it's done. There's nothing else.
Can't overspend if you haven't got access to it.
Talk to your grandparents. They know about that very well. The next one is pay yourself first, or it could be reverse budgeting, which says, I'm going to give this amount of money to me first, and then everything else needs to come out of that. So the best feature is that predetermined surplus target. Zero-based budgeting, so every dollar gets allocated so that you know that it has a purpose, where it goes, and it's kind of micromanaged pretty well. The alternative is the anti-budget. So it's basically saying, all right, let's have a certain portion for saving and investing so that we do prioritize the things that matter, and then you don't have to track everything. And let's be honest, people don't really like to track everything. There's only a certain amount of things that they like to track.
The less work that we can do, the better.
And we'll show you what that is. The debt snowball, or the avalanche, and that's largely a debt clearing system. You've got the 60% solution, where you've got 60% committed and 40% are in other buckets, which could be, investing, long-term investing, short-term savings, 10% for fund money, 10% for discretionary spending. So you can see that there's some allocating on the things that matter. And then we sort of debated how to say this, but I'm going with the Kakaibo method from Japan, which is all about that mindfulness and having that connection. So look, there are a bunch of other options and scenarios and strategies that you can implement, Ben, but I'd love to know how we sort of tackle that.
Well, let's get this right. So these are the biggest and most known budgeting systems around the world. Right? You'll hear a lot of people talking about it. There's been millions and millions of words written on these. There's books that go deep into each of those systems. That is absolutely true. But what we also know is that these are the best features associated with those. So when we were building MoneySMARTS and working through that and taking those observations, what we obviously wanted to do was, well, what if we designed a money management system that took the very, very best of those and put them in here? So this is my challenge to all those people who have their own budgeting system and they think it works fine for them. Well, imagine getting the best of all of those other systems and then putting them into one system. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about in terms of that. So let's just recap on those. So classic budget system, what do we take from that? Well, yes, MoneySMARTS is an annualized system that effectively is about trapping or projecting what targeted spending you're going to do over a 12-month period and then going after that target. Okay, so that is a good thing. But remember, classic budgets don't work. You've got inconsistencies in terms of how that money you allocate, you divide it by 12 over that 12-month period. And the problem with that is you get a really big month where it blows out your budget and it doesn't really adjust. So it's really important that you have that annual system, but it's also got some rules around it. Those rules really matter in terms of staying to that targeted result. Let's now look at the 50, 30, 20, and that's the needs versus the want spending. So what we've taken from that, and you'll see it in each of the individual financial cards, is the ability to go essential and discretionary spending. So even inside a particular groceries card, you might say, well, I want to spend at least $300 on the essentials, but there might be a few discretionaries in there, such as confectionaries or ice cream or some treats or something along those lines. So you're able to break them out. So you're able to do that in the MoneySMARTS system. Then with the envelopes and jars, well, that's the core of the MoneySMARTS system. It's a digital jar system. So we're basically trying to allocate that money into different areas as part of that particular system. So we run the jars, and then we also have the living and lifestyle account, and which is our famous 7-day float. So if you don't understand what the 7-day float is, it is as simple, isn't it, Bryce? As parents getting their old pay slip, tearing it, and then this money went in here, and when it's gone to the exhausted point that you mentioned before. Then the pay yourself first method, which is basically that predetermined surplus. Well, we've got that. That's called the annual targeted surplus, or the targeted annual surplus, as part of what that story is. Then the zero budgeting, and that's every dollar's got a job to do. Well, I cannot stress enough here in terms of the way in which we've designed the system. We've got our categories, which are the broad categories, then the items and the card personalization options associated with that. So we've taken full advantage of that. The anti-budget, which is basically the investment and and don't track anything else. Once you've got that, the other money's for spending. Well, this is basically what we do here in terms of, we say, as part of the living and lifestyle or the regular spending, we don't want you to track it. That's what saves you all the time. That's why it only takes you 10 minutes a month to run the MoneySMARTS system. Debt snowball versus avalanche, which is the clearing debt story. We accommodate both options. In fact, Bryce and I have different views on this in terms of, I'm very much an avalanche, but there's a lot of human behavior around doing the debt snowball, which is about having those small wins that start to develop big behaviors and better behaviors. So we don't care which system you use, because you can do both under the MoneySMARTS system. The 60% solution, which is the fund money and the discretionary, well, this is where we talk about focusing on the building wealth, not just building wealth, but also on what we call lifestyle items too. So that is making sure that's a little bit of fun along the way. And then the Kakaibo method, which is the conscious spending. Well, from our point of view, we think that this is built for aspirational Australians. They're very conscientious. The people who do manage any money system are conscientious Australians, and they want to make good with their money. They want their money to work for them, not necessarily against them. So we aspire to that as part of the MoneySMARTS system as well. So let's do a couple of little sketches for them, Bryce.
Now this is imagery that's come straight out of our book, Make Money Simple Again, and it's a really powerful imagery to. This is the flower jar envelope system that your grandparents used to use, and we think it actually has a very powerful place even in the 21st century, particularly given that not a lot of people actually physically deal in cash anymore. In fact, some places won't take it. But the fact that the metaphor of the jar still exists today, because if you have a look at that image to the bottom, we quarantine certain parts of our money management system, the rules-based money management system, into these jars. And so the one on the left is the living and lifestyle jar. And that's the 7-day float that we talked about before. And that's the beauty of this system, because if you find that you've done the work up front and you say, I can spend $300 a week, or I can spend $190 a week, or I can spend $500, whatever that number is for you, then you can just go and spend it without having to manage where it is. All you need to do is make sure that it gets you through 7 days. We've got a suggestion you pay yourself on a Thursday so that you can have a big weekend. And if you do have a big weekend, you open the pantry on the Monday and you make it last. The credit card jar, the direct payments jar, and the loans jar, you don't have to micromanage those because the system works it out for you. The only thing, if you want to manage to a certain extent, so holidays or gifts or personal care or clothing, that you go, well, I really do want to allocate that over the year, that's what the provisions jar is for, and we can do that. So it's a very, very simple system, and we pride ourselves on that fact. But this is how it actually works. The money comes in that way, then the money goes out. So with the living and lifestyle jar, you can have a debit card or cash. Now, again, most people do a tap function. So just tap when you need to spend the money. There's my cappuccino, tap. There's my groceries, tap. There's my fuel, tap. That's okay because I've allocated for that. We don't necessarily need to micromanage that. The second one there is the credit card jar. So let's say you get fixed bills that you're not going to overspend on. Well, if you're disciplined enough to have a credit card, and if you don't want to have a credit card, the system still works. You don't need to have one. But if you're disciplined enough to have a credit card, what you do is you get all those bills and payments automatically coming off the credit card. You then get the credit card swept on a monthly basis out of your primary account, and you get on with it. Again, you don't have to manage and track those because it's done for you. If there is no credit card payments, you can do that through the direct payment jar, comes straight out. Then your passive loan accounts come out of the loan jar. So typically the mortgage, and if you like Ben and I, you're property investors, so we've got loan repayments with our property, our investment portfolio. So that gets automatically paid out of the loan jar. And then the provisions. as we talked about before, the stuff that you actually want to keep a track of each year, each month, you do that through the provisions jar. And Ben, the Moorr platform does that for you, so you don't have to worry about doing any of this.
The magic is there. So ultimately, if you need to do a transaction and it's regular, to your point, Bryce, that's just regular spending. Get it done in the living and lifestyle. The provisions jar, which is the ad hoc, and you want to track those transactions for each of those things because, yeah, I don't, like I got a holiday budget, but I want to make sure that I'm not overspending.
You might spend the flights in March. You might put the car hire in June, and then you might go on the holiday in October.
I can record those really, really comfortably. And if you haven't watched any of the intro videos in terms of that, they're all available on the platform as well in terms of the knowledge area. Now, here's the big thing. I mean, just in that sketch diagram alone, you can see that cash story there. That sort of says that the system has been around for well over a decade, and ultimately there's been tens of thousands of people
who've road tested this,
who have road tested clients, and so they know what's going on. Now, here's what's changed. So we've brought it into the 21st century in terms of how we set it up into the Moorr platform. So if you've got the book, or if you're not new to the book and the manual, in terms of how we used to run it, was we had the financial classifications. So we've got income, expenditure, assets, and borrowings. Then we had the financial items. Now, of course, also the book is over 5 years old now. Financial items was the layer that we went to in explaining it in the book. Now, you can just keep it as simple as those financial items. So in this particular case, I've got some expenses examples here. So we've got over 32 different expense categories in which you can choose. But I got 2 boys, and they're 2 active boys. And you can see here, I've got, in terms of sport, recreation, and hobbies. Well, I want to track what I'm spending for Jack versus what I'm spending for Harry, because trust me, they know, and if they don't feel like they're getting the same, balanced out spend on them, they'll be putting their hands up. So what I do for Harry's basketball is I track the spend of the basketball, and then Jack does taekwondo and he does swimming. And so I can so that's where the card layer comes in, the financial cards. Now, in this particular example, what we've done is we've followed the story to digital subscriptions. So if you want to also separate out your digital subscriptions, you can do that as well in terms of, and so that is what the power of financial cards did. Now, because we decided with the feedback that we got from people that they wanted to personalize it more, that changed the My Wealth portal into launching the MyFinancials core. So we rebuilt the absolutely foundations, and then we've built MoneySMARTS back on top of that. And so that's what you're seeing today as part of that. So when you do go into the platform, so in this case, we're on the web app version because it's a little bit easier, but it's also available in the mobile as well. You can see here that this is basically our card tray. So these are the financial cards. And so you can bring them up. You can organize them also, vertically and horizontally, but you can start to see all the different cards associated with that. Now, it's important to understand those and the relationships that they have. So if you think about this, you think, okay, an asset has expenses, it has income, and so you can see, you'll be able to see those relationships that are all, to Bryce's point before, dynamic, behind the scenes, all of that's taken care of. You can see also in terms of the asset side that the bank accounts are obviously assets. So we've got a primary bank account. We've also got a living and lifestyle, which is still a bank account. And then the credit card is also a bank account. So it's important to understand that. So let's lay that out in a visualization point of view, Bryce. So take us through how it all starts to lay itself out.
So this is the classic single method for one primary account. So basically you get all of the green represents all the money coming in. That gets parked into the primary account. That's an important part of the MoneySMARTS system. You have one primary account where you put all of your money. Typically, it's an offset account if you've got lending, largely because you can then be offsetting the balance of the loan, which further reinforces the amount of surplus that you can track. But
beautiful.
So you bring the money into the primary account, and then once a week, I suggested before that would be a Thursday. That's when my wife and I do it. I know that's when Ben does it. The money goes out of the primary account on Thursday. And this is where we want you to be, instead of the money on the left there, where Mary's salary and John's salary and the income coming in from the investment property, that coming into your primary account, that is not considered in our system when you get paid we consider when you get paid when it goes into your living and lifestyle account, because that's essentially what you need to be thinking about for the next 7 days, because the rest of the system is all on autopilot, looking after your money, and at the end of the year, trapping the surplus for you. Because remember, 10 minutes a month, most people don't like tracking all their money, so we've got to make sure we're playing to human behavior, not trying to panel beat something that people don't want to do. So you get paid once into your living and lifestyle account. And then your council rates, water rates, your insurance for your home,
bills,
your car insurance. Think about all the bills that you get. That would go off to your credit card so that you can pay them. For a lot of credit cards, you get up to 55 days interest free. Now, here's the kicker on this. You would get the credit card paid on the due date, auto swept at the bank out of your primary account. Again, so it's on autopilot. You don't think, when's the due date? Am I going to pay interest? This way you can use a credit card without paying interest. Now, remember what I said before, that's if you're disciplined and you're comfortable with a credit card. Now, one of the questions we've already received, Ben, is what if I don't want to use a credit card? That is fine. Put a big cross through this and just have all of it coming directly out of the primary account.
Direct debits.
Let's not get bogged down by that. But if you don't want a credit card, it's totally fine. You don't have to use one. And then obviously the last part of this classic primary account method is auto loan repayments from all of your passive loans. Now, folks, I'm just going to pause here and let you know that it doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter how many properties you have. Doesn't matter how complex your inflows and outflows are in your household. This here is the very basis of the MoneySMARTS system. It is the very basis that keeps my wife and I on the same page. It is the very basis that all of our clients use to make sure that that living and lifestyle account at the top of the page is all that you have to worry about, because the rest gets looked after either via your credit card or via your provisions jar. It is mind-blowingly simple, and some of the comments that we're getting in the chat channel, Ben, is that people say this has had a profound impact on the way they manage their money. How simple is that? It's one debit card, one credit card, passive loan accounts, and a primary account. It is mind-blowing how simple that is. We can't help everyone with their behavior, Ben. We're trying to do the best we can to make the habits.
We can give them a tip about their behavior too, Bryce. With the credit card, it's not for discretionary
100%.
or lifestyle spending, okay? So it really is just there to pay the bills, because we know what the bills are going to be. Like, in other words, you never pay extra on your bills. You just pay what they are. And so the advantage of the 55-day rolling interest-free period is that money's sitting in your offset, or it's sitting in your high interest savings account. So I would be saying to those people, if you can't trust yourself, that is fine. Don't set up a credit card. But if you once you build confidence and knowledge and so financial literacy and sophistication about that, then maybe trial a credit card, because they can be quite powerful to use in terms of keeping all your money in your offset account, saving interest on your mortgage. So that just gives us a bit of an idea. Now, I've got some exciting news, Bryce.
Yo.
We're going to be introducing someone.
Come on.
Okay, so it's my absolute pleasure to obviously be introducing our product manager at Moorr, who has been responsible for the redevelopment of the MoneySMARTS system. So based on obviously some of the changes that we've seen with regards to the lenders and the banks getting more sophisticated in terms of more options around managing your money, but also in the changing behaviors that we're also seeing when it comes to households who want to separate out some of their money. We needed to move with the times. We needed to bring MoneySMARTS up to a level that is digitally ready for the 21st century. And Al has been instrumental in terms of putting all that together. So welcome to the live session, Al. We're thrilled to have you, and you're going to take us through some of those key updates, and including some of the fixes and some of the things that we got some feedback on in regards to, you know what, the way in which this adjusts, it backdates, and now I don't know where I really stand. So I'm thrilled that Al is going to take us through some of these next updates and the benefits associated. So welcome, Al.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bryce and Ben. It's a pleasure to be here today. So what I will be doing today is I will be taking you through a number of the key updates that we've had within MoneySMARTS, and then I'll be sharing my screen today as well, just to do a quick live demonstration on some of the features that have been introduced within MoneySMARTS 2.0. So first of all, as Ben alluded to earlier, MoneySMARTS was developed way back almost a decade ago or more, and in the MyWealth portal platform in 2017. So what we really needed to do is we need to bring that back, as Ben said, into the modern day banking system. So in essence, what we wanted to do is we wanted to address a number of bits of feedback that we had from our users, and I'll take you through 4 of the key updates in relation to that feedback. And part of that feedback really was around making sure that we could get the MoneySMARTS platform into a more readable sort of state and a more user-friendly state as well. So one of the first key updates I'm going to be talking to you about today is how we've addressed the changes to the feedback in relation to the checkup reporting table and the changes that have been made. Now, fundamentally, this has been made to help you better understand your financial position when you're reading that particular table. So jumping quickly over to the table itself, what you'll notice when you go into MoneySMARTS, again, is that the layout is just slightly different. What we've done is we've taken parts of the MoneySMARTS 1.0 layout, and if you just pay attention to the headers up the top over here, what we've done is we've actually changed it from a single month to showing an actual range itself from one date to another. One of the key points of feedback that we had was specifically around provision transactions and where they fell exactly within each of those particular months. So by introducing these particular headings and then now allowing the flow of this net cash position to flow from the top to the bottom rather than just directly across, you can now start to see the impact that you're having on your cash flows really within that particular month. So previously, if I had a transaction that showed within January itself, it was a little bit ambiguous just looking at the table itself where it fell within each side of the MoneySMARTS monthly periods. Whereas here you can see very clearly if I spend $200 on the 20th of January, that's going in this particular month over here. In addition to that, we've also added a few sort of quality of life changes to this particular area itself, particularly around definitions. So we had a lot of people asking questions around what each of these particular bits of terminology mean. So now you can actually click on those and read directly into that if you want to on a relatively quick basis. And we do have expanded sets of supporting documentation around MoneySMARTS 2.0 as well. So as an example over here with the yearly remaining provisions total, if you do click on this particular button here, it does take you to our MoneySMARTS 2.0 overview on our Moorr website.
Al, I'm loving these tooltips. They are really great in the way in which they help the user understand that. And I also don't want it to be lost, and we'll touch on this in part of the demonstration that you're doing, that with the rebuild into the MyFinancials and ultimately tracking money on a daily basis, that is the power behind what you're seeing in the digital experience that we're getting through the UI in front of us. But we're going to touch on that more, but it really has allowed us in terms of to get these richer insights and for the user based on, this nice little tool that Al's added in terms of the time periods that I'm looking at that story. So when I get my bank statements and I'm doing my monthly checkup and I'm looking at the balances, I can get a relationship associated with that. And I think this makes a really good point in terms of the transformation that you've made there, Al.
Yeah, so though it does, it might look a little bit minor on top over there, but that was actually one of the questions that we used to get on our customer service center almost weekly back in the day. So that was definitely one thing that we wanted to address first and foremost is, really address a lot of the questions that we had around this checkup reporting table. So that does lead me into the very next part of the evolution for MoneySMARTS 2.0, which is around, which is really what MoneySMARTS 2.0 was built around, which was around integrating the MyFinancial historical data directly into MoneySMARTS and really bringing MoneySMARTS back into the Moorr platform in the way that it was intended to be. So by doing this, we're using the MyFinancial historical data to allow you to get accurate to-the-date reporting in MoneySMARTS itself. And this MyFinancial data really is going to serve as the core of all future insights that will appear in the platform in the future as well. So just to give you a little bit of a demo as to what this sort of looks like over here, using this exact same checkup reporting table that we saw earlier, I'll just draw your attention to this particular month over here in between 19th of June 2023 to the 18th of July, you'll see there are some adjustments to the actual monthly allocated provision spending directly from this particular month onwards, and there's changes to the actual targeted monthly surplus as well. So the reason why we made this particular change was this was, I think, probably one of the number one bits of feedback around this reporting in the past was if I had let's say this was my reporting period and it started from the 19th of December. If I made a massive change to my lifestyle, let's say I've increased my income by $20,000 per year from the 19th of October, or I've increased an expense by $10,000 per year from that particular date onwards. In MoneySMARTS 1.0, effectively that change in your targeted surplus would reflect across your entire period. And effectively what that meant is that the targeted surplus that you would see would look a little bit different. But from here, by using the historical tracking records in your expenses and in your income, in your MyFinancial data, you can actually see that every time you make a change to your expenses and to your income, you'll actually see those changes come through directly in the month that's actually relevant to. So using this particular example, I've got the 19th of June to 18th of July. I'll just pick one of the expenses that I've actually made changes for over here. So here I've made a change to the clothing, footwear, dry cleaning, etc., and I've reduced the expense from $2,700 per year to $2,200 per year. So that's allowed for a slight reduction in those particular expenses, and that's amongst some of the other changes that I've made. So you can see that in the My Financial card area, this historical change log is really going to serve as the core of where all the insights are going to come from in MoneySMARTS, as well as all the future insights in the platform too.
Al, I want to take a point on that. Can you just bring that sort of historical chart up again? That's, the historical tracking log. These as at dates are super powerful for a lot of good reasons. One is you can get rid of all your old spreadsheets. If people are thinking about, do I move across and I lose all that other data? You can load all of that old data in, and effectively you can go back to 1971 if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter the way in which the system's been built. But what this has also done in this integration with the MyFinancials and now Moorr being a complementary tool MoneySMARTS being a complementary tool inside Moorr, is it absolutely means that there's no double entry. So once it goes into one particular location, that this is what you're saying, Bryce is saying about the magic just happens. Like we've taken all of the effort, the time, the energy that's required as part of that particular story. So this is the secret sauce, people, in terms of the foundation bits of what's going to make this platform so valuable to you, because you've got all of this data points and right through time. So that I just wanted to double click on that, Al, because it's a really fundamental thing that we've added to the platform. And I think it's going to be game changer over the long term as people build up all of their information inside the portal.
Thanks very much, Ben. And as you can see over above, I've just illustrated exactly what Ben's sort of talked about in terms of a change in your data automatically reflecting within the monthly interval that it's happened in, and that happening automatically from our reporting from there on. All right, so that's with relation to the integrated MyFinancial historical data, but more on that as well. We'll touch a little bit more on that with regards to how we've now brought into MoneySMARTS the ability to start tracking multiple bank accounts. So as Ben and Bryce alluded to earlier, the core principle of MoneySMARTS is you really should only be having that single primary bank account where all the money is sort of flowing into and everything's happening there. But we do know that modern bank systems do allow you to have multiple offset accounts potentially offsetting the same loan, or they might have certain nuances in their particular systems, which means you might want to track MoneySMARTS or track your finances just slightly differently from the way that the original MoneySMARTS dictated. So what you can see here is, I'll take you through the benefit here in terms of tracking multiple bank accounts. Obviously, the key one there is not having to enter information twice. And in MoneySMARTS 2.0, having a single balance entry basically meant that if you were running a system with multiple bank accounts, you had to manually sum it up and pop it in MoneySMARTS, whereas with MoneySMARTS 2.0 from here onwards, for your checkups in the future going forwards, you won't have to do that anymore. Alrighty. All right, so what we've got over here is a existing user in MoneySMARTS who already has a number of checkups in place that they've used using the pre-existing MoneySMARTS checkup. So you can see that this is still recording a total account balance and a total credit card balance in the past. So this is one of the old school MoneySMARTS 1.0 checkups. So if you are a returning user to MoneySMARTS, you will find that all your data is still retained over here, and you don't necessarily have to make amendments to your past data if you don't want to, but you are of course more than welcome to. So in order to do so, first thing I'll draw your attention to here is the opening balances as at the 19th of the 11th, 2023. What this effectively is alluding to is that in line with MoneySMARTS, you really should be recording the balance of your bank account on that specific date. And if you wanted to start tracking using your card balances directly by checking this button on an existing user, so new users won't necessarily see this again, but on an existing user, you will see the option to do this. And you can see here, the other check account appears, which is one of my bank accounts in the platform, as well as the other credit card itself. If I go ahead and make a change, let's just add $10,000 to that credit card. And then I'll just add that in. So that's the 19th of the 11th, 2023. If I come over to the other check account over here, you can see that balance has now been recorded on the 19th of the 11th, 2023. Similarly, if I did want to make a change, I could also update a figure directly in here as well. And that would also automatically reflect back in the MoneySMARTS area too. So that's that sort of two-way tracking that I sort of alluded to earlier in terms of removing that double entry. So what if I actually had multiple bank accounts? So if I had multiple bank accounts, one of the best ways to set this up is to click on the Set Up MoneySMARTS Account Tracking button in the top right. So here you can see that this user actually does have 2 bank accounts. And what I'll do here is I'll effectively set it so that I actually want to start tracking these 2 bank accounts from all the way back in this particular date over here. So the 19th of December, 2022. So by doing that, you'll see some of these balances have actually automatically changed. And that's because I actually had existing data already in place that I'd started tracking in the historical tracking log for my joint bank account over here. So that's why that's now in place over here. And you can see a list of the history and all the information that I've entered in there as well. Now, why this is really important is you can see now this is basically on a daily granularity level, which mirrors essentially what's going to come into play when we start talking about automatic bank feeds. So the power of that again is when I know exactly what the balance is on that particular date, and obviously with the bank feed, it'll automatically come through. It could potentially automatically populate this particular area over here and feed directly into this MoneySMARTS checkup area too. Awesome.
So Al, what you're basically telling us is that one day in the near future, maybe in 2025, the 10-minute monthly checkup might actually turn into a 2-minute monthly checkup just to make sure that the data's coming through, especially if we get, say, bank feeds or something like that coming through the system.
That's exactly what we're rowing towards, and that is definitely in the pipeline for the near future, and we're actively working on that at the moment.
Beautiful.
All right, yeah. So to finally cover off this part about the dynamic multiple primary accounts, what you can see here is in the instance where you do have a system where you're running multiple bank accounts and you're trying to collate everything within MoneySMARTS itself. Here's an example setup where you and your partner might actually run separate offset accounts initially, but they're all tied to perhaps the same offset account system or the same loan, and offsetting the exact same loan there. So that's how you might potentially set that up. You might have multiple bank accounts being tracked in MoneySMARTS, and you'll be entering in those values essentially once a month to have that data automatically feed through to your platform.
Now, some people, Al, might at this point in time, and if you're listening along on the podcast or something later on, what might you be thinking about with the living and lifestyle account is the living and lifestyle account, again, under the 21st century way in which banking might have multiple offsets or multiple savings accounts. It can still be an offset account, but the reason why we don't necessarily want to do a monthly checkup on it is because that's the accounts that we said we didn't want to track. That's the money you said you were going to spend. So still make sure that it's offset connected to a loan account, so it's offsetting interest. But it still needs to sit to the side. If we were to add that to that group there, then effectively we're just adding extra admin work that we don't need to do. So the idea behind that is, again, don't track what you don't need to track if you don't want to. Now, as a digital age keeps coming out there, most things might be ingested automatically, and AI and agents and all that might help us in the future. But really, it is about sort of saying we really only want to track the items that we think are ad hoc or that we might be scared of overspending on as part of that particular story.
That's exactly right. So you can see here, you do have the power to obviously keep the single primary account option in terms of tracking. So if you want to continue maintaining that, you're absolutely welcome to do so. And the platform, of course, does allow for that. Moving on to the final piece over here, we have basically made some updates to the start date functionality as well as the rollover functionality, specifically on the web app version in relation to the rollover. And that specifically addresses the user behavior side of things when people do fall off the bandwagon, perhaps somewhere along the way, and they do want to change their start date. Or let's say just they started tracking MoneySMARTS in March as an example, and they wanted to instead move that to start in July or January so that they can match either a calendar period or your financial year. So I'll just quickly take you through what that potentially looks like over here. Now, one of the things that you will note with the start date that with MoneySMARTS now tracking data basically or tracking the actual balance on that specific date, what that does mean though is that if I do change the start date as an example, I'm going to change this to the 1st of the 1st, 2023. It's really quick and easy to do, but what you can see there is if I had data originally referred to on the 19th of January 2023 as an example, that value won't necessarily come through directly, and that is intentional and it is by design, because effectively with MoneySMARTS, what you really want to be doing is you want to be tracking the data on that specific date. So I did have a couple of questions come through on the customer service center over the last week, specifically around why I can't see a certain period, which is in that example, we were talking about, let's go to 1st of July 2024. We were talking about a future period. So let's say, for example, I have changed my start date to the 1st of July 2024. You can see here that I'm only seeing 5 periods here specifically. And that's because the 1st of December 2024 doesn't actually exist yet. So, the danger in obviously tracking your money early is that you are missing a good period of time in which there is cash flow happening. So if I'm tracking that particular balance 2 or 3 weeks early or 2 or 3 weeks late, I'm actually not getting a right set of reporting in between those particular months, which again alludes to why we are showing the actual movement between 2 particular dates and showing the actual movement on a monthly basis. So coming back over here to the start date, previously I had the checkups happening on the 19th of the month. So if I wanted to change it from, instead of the December, I wanted to change it to the 19th of January 2023, you can see that if I've already got existing data logged in my historical data logs for my financial cards, again, that data will automatically come through. So finally, I wanted to take you through the rollover and the changes over there. Really what this update was designed to do was to allow you to be able to roll over when you had incomplete periods. So this was one of the common requests that came through on the customer service center, which again relates to that human behavior that I alluded to. But let's say, for example, I wanted to roll over a little bit earlier for whatever reason. And let's say I want to make that the 19th of the 12th, 2023. So I just cut off that particular month over there. The rest of this should look very familiar to you, but one key difference that we've made over here is that after you've made changes to your values, so I'm just going to make an exorbitant change here so you can actually see the impact of it to the digital subscriptions value. After you've made the changes over here and you've hit complete and publish that information now goes through to the card's historical change log for all of these changes that you've just made on that particular date. So the date that I specified for my new period, I believe was the, there you go, 19th of December, 2023. And I think it was the digital subscriptions one that
It was the digital subscriptions.
Thank you very much. And there you go. You can see that's come through with that large change that I've made. You can see over there as well, it's showing automatically that already that I've got that change on the 19th of December, and you can see that over there too. So this change to the rollover feature really just keeps it nice and clean in terms of when you're making adjustments to your MoneySmarts budget per se. They're going to be happening basically at the start of the period, and we're basically creating a log of all that information inside your MyFinancial card area. Again, reinforcing that this particular area here is going to be the core of where all of your insights are going to be drawn from in the future.
Al, that's a wonderful summary, Alric. Seriously, I just want to mention a couple of points here. You know, best intentions. We know that there's a lot of people who've started MoneySmarts. It's a bit like starting their gym membership, and they've been going about it, and then all of a sudden they drop off. And so one of the big features is starting a new period. Now, I always was like, well, they just need to wait for the 12 months. No, Al was like, no, we've got to change this. The users want it, and I agree. And so we've now made those particular changes. Now agree. I was wrong. And so we've obviously made that change. So it means that if you are re-engaging with MoneySmarts, you want to give it another go. Now, the beautiful part about it, all that rich data that you did start with is still in there. And if you ever do want to go back and fill in the gaps on that 12-month period, you can. But you can start today. You can start now to start setting up. And what Al did with that rollover, effectively that rollover section there is about setting your next 12-month targets. Because remember, your expenses are targeted, or forecast expenditure. Your borrowings and your repayments, they're actual numbers, okay? And the same usually with income, they're actual numbers. So it really is important to understand those nuances. And then when transactions do come, we'll talk about that soon, but when transactions do come, that's going to be a part of that story. So Bryce, we're going to do some questions now.
We've got some Q&A. So I'm going to give you a very easy layup here from Jordan Alric. Is it available just on web, or has it got mobile as well?
It's definitely available on both mobile and web. We do find that a lot of our users who use MoneySmarts do their checkups on the mobile. So we've definitely included that on both.
Little tip for that, folks, is quite often it's when you're setting it up, it's easy to do it on the desktop because you've got more real estate to actually go through it. But then obviously once the majority of it's set up, you then can do it on the run when you're doing it on your smartphone. So it allows you to be across multiple platforms. This one's for you, Ben.
Yep.
It's kind of a 101 when it comes to this sort of stuff, because if someone's watching this and they're thinking, oh, okay, that all sounds great, I feel like there's some really good tools, but they've got that number one niggle in the back of their mind around security. And this is Christine's question. I am registered, but I'm concerned about putting all this information in one place and the security of doing this. Can you address that?
Well, I mean, yes, the reality is that you're putting a lot of financial information inside a cloud universe. So it's the stuff that we lie on our pillow and we're thinking about all the time in terms of making the security as strong as we possibly can. Now, some people put their nicknames in there and don't necessarily use their exact addresses as means by which, if the information is accessed, and again, touch wood, we hope it never will be, but if it is, it's anonymized in a way because there's no identification in terms of who that person is. We say to get the best out of the platform, certainly the addresses of the properties, because we also do some rental analysis and some other insights around that. But I can't stress enough, it's the one fundamental thing that we think about all the time, and that's why we've got two-factor authentication. That's why we've got encryption in rest state as well as in movement of data. That's why we're always, looking at ways to test the system in terms of trying to make it better and more secure. So we'll continue to keep making those investments. When you first log in, you won't get asked for the two-factor authentication, but then the second time you come in, you will be. So that's when you're going to get serious about it. So we want to make sure that the gate's locked in as many places as we can possibly get it to increase that security level. Like anything, we can do as much as we possibly can to try and limit that risk around your data being available. So, and it's no different than what the banks have to do and it's no different than what your financial planners and accountants have to do. It's no different than what your mechanic has to do in terms of trying to keep your data protected. But of course, being financial data and having all of that rich information in the one location, we try our best to make sure that that's absolutely protected. One of the things that I'll also add here is it's not actually the real money. Like, in other words, we're not a bank. You can't get access to your money. This is basically just effectively a cloud-based supercharged spreadsheet database system. It's not necessarily any way in which you can do payments.
Yeah.
So effectively, it's just record keeping, bookkeeping around managing your money.
Now, folks, just want to remind you, for anyone who has left us a question, you don't have to have it read out if we don't get to all of them, but if you've left us a question, just screenshot you leaving that question and email us at info@moorr.com.au. We're going to give you a copy of our the Armchair Guide to Property Investing case study. It's a course. We normally sell that for $297. We're going to give that to you for free just for leaving a question. So, folks, it's not too late if you want to get access to that to leave us a question. There's a question here, I think, that I might interpret, Ben. It's
Sure.
Hi B1 and B2. Absolutely love the money management tool. This one's from Trevor. Wondering why it was decided to use the color purple for your theme or the main color palette. PS, not suggesting one of you is better than the other with the B1, B2 reference. Think of it as having endearing connotations. We do, thank you. I'm going to answer that because I think you may be going towards the fact that I'm a Fremantle Dockers supporter that is all about purple, but it's actually nothing to do with that, because I don't think I would have got Ben over the line if it was just that. But we had some research that we tapped into around conversion in terms of color palettes that appeal to folks, and it got lots of A/B tests against it, and so we just borrowed some of that research, and the palette that we chose was high on that. So I'm wondering if that answered your question. Thank you for that, Trevor. Alric, I'll give this to you, and I don't think you're not going to be answered specifically, but I think this is important for you to give a rough rule of thumb. But it's from Ryan. Moorr has been a great system since I stumbled across it. Super keen for open banking to be added. Ben's hinted, you've hinted. Is there a time frame for the integration? Now, you're not going to give a date, but can you let us know kind of how much of a priority this is, and when you think, what sort of half-yearly time frame you think it might be aiming for?
Yeah, I'd say open banking is definitely our number one priority at the moment, and it certainly was when we had MoneySMARTS updating this in mind as well. So as I alluded to earlier, a lot of the updates that we had in MoneySMARTS was to bring it in line with our MyFinancial historical data, where a lot of that information is going to be stored when it comes to the with the open banking. So you also touched on security as well. That's one of the large aspects that's already being explored when it comes to open banking, and ensuring that the system is secure enough to cater for that. So in terms of time frame, obviously, can't really say much in that front, but it definitely is the number one thing that we're working on at the moment.
I think that's the best way to answer that. It is a huge priority for us. So I think that hopefully that helps you there, Ryan. A couple of questions. I think we've answered it in the presentation, but let's just tick the box for Blake and for Tierney. What is your suggestion to those people who don't have a credit card? And another variation of that is, I don't want to use a credit card. What are the other options, Alric?
Just put it straight through direct debit. Put it straight through to your primary account. That's exactly right.
Well said. That was the security question. What should my credit card limit be, Ben?
Well, this is a really good question. It's something we often get. Remember that I said early on, in terms of a beginner's tip, the credit card should accommodate the bill payment fluctuations only, right? So in other words, if you have an idea of what your peak bill month would be, that's what the limit should be set at. So the idea, again, is really the credit card should only be there for bill payments. So that is a great way of getting started and sort of say, okay, I've laid out my 12 months of spending, and it just so happens that I've got car rego and house and contents insurance in the same month. So all of a sudden that's like $3 and a bit grand. Plus I've got my regular bills in there as well. So that might push me to say $3,500 to $3,800. So if that's the case, then set it at $4,000. And so the idea is, as you're then rolling through, there's no other reason to use a credit card. Remember, it's not there to use for anything else, because emergency savings buffers should be in your primary account. So they should be the money that you're trapping should be there for emergencies. So the idea is get an idea of your 12-month bill spend, and then look at your peak month in which those bills roll in, and then set it just above that, making sure you've got that accommodated.
Good answer. Hey, this one this is from Mark. Is there a full list of what a couple should consider as living and lifestyle jar expenses? Yes, there is.
There is.
The team will put a link in the comments now. You can go and download Make Money Simple Again for free, a PDF copy, because in the chapter we actually go through and highlight that specifically, what account you should use for where. So go and download that. Page 73. Go and download that for free, and we go through that in some detail in our book. Ben, this one's for you. What if you're in a long-term relationship with shared expenses, but your partner doesn't want to do this, but you do? Can this system still work?
Okay, shared expenses, yes. Well, I mean, this is actually fine for you. So one of the things that we're also working towards is giving dual access to household users. So in this particular example, you would track the shared on behalf of both of you, and then potentially have your separate account. So what Al's 2.0 version that he's built for you is perfect for you, because you can have the shared account, and then ultimately you can have the personal account. So your income should be coming into your personal primary account, and then you can either transfer it to the share account to pay the bills, or you can manage it in terms of just doing an allocation down there, and that's it. And then you can still run your own system. And so that means that you'll be trapping your annual surplus and paying your share of the bills, however your household decides to work those out.
This one is for you, Al. I think it just requires a little bit of polish on the answers that you gave in your part of the presentation. But if we've stuffed setting this up, should we delete everything and start again? Or should we just pick a new reconciliation start date and go from there? That's from Charlie.
It really depends on how badly you've stuffed it up. But, I would definitely recommend just picking a new start date and doing the rollover functionality there, and then setting your new expenses from there, because you can really just maintain the historical records that you've had in the past. Again, as I mentioned, it depends how different they are to reality, and then kind of go from there.
But can I also add to what I was saying is, remember the historical log, this tracking log that's built into the fabric of the platform now. The idea there is, as you look through each of your cards, you can open up your as at, and you can see that tracking log. And if the number's wrong in there, just delete it. And if you want to put it or edit it. And so all of a sudden, because the beauty of that, and what we haven't really shown you tonight, because we don't have a lot of time, is then you get all the wealth tracking, and then you get the wealth clock and the wealth speed indicators, and you get this beautiful wealth tracker sort of backstory. So, part of the biggest problem with money managing in general is seeing progress. Normally it's the same sort of thing. If I'm trying to run a marathon, the first couple of days, I just don't feel like I'm making any progress. But if I keep working on my, training program for 6-8 weeks before the marathon, I start to feel that progress. The idea of the historical tracking is I can potentially put some of that old information in, including the value of what you paid for your property when you might have bought it 8 years ago, and then updating the value today. And so all of a sudden you start to get those rich insights when it comes to looking at, that progress that you are making, because that progress matters when it comes to behavior. So I think that's really important, and it's a wonderful question that we got to answer.
So folks, if you could give us a like if you find this webinar helpful, so that more people find out about us and about money management, that would be certainly helpful. And as I said, anyone who puts a question in the chat channel, we will definitely give you a copy of that course, which is normally $297. Hey, this next question is from Hayley McFarlane, and it actually is the core of who we are and why the system was started, because it's made by property investors for property investors. But underneath that underpins good money management, which is every household.
For a 16-year-old to a 106-year-old.
Across borders, across geography, that underpinning of that basic money management is super important. But obviously for anyone who knows us through the Property Couch and what we are passionate about, it's lifestyle by design through established residential property. So this question here, I'll give it to you, Ben.
Sure.
Will there be more added around the property analysis, future forecasting and values? And before you get there, there's another one down here that I might as well kill two birds with one stone. It's related. Question. If I can quickly find it on the run without having pressure. I've been a user for a good while now, and loving the platform. Can you add and track a property and its finances that are purchased in other entities other than your own name?
Well, in about 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to unpack basically what the product pathway looks like for the property side of the platform. So hang around for that if you can for me. I'll give you that, because I'm going to spend a bit of time in talking to some of the new features and tools. So we've got obviously Alric, who looks after the money management, wealth, and open banking is going to be in his remit. And then we've got the beautiful Jade, who's also very strong on the property side and also the goal side. So our core product managers are working in tandem in terms of building out each of those features. So I've got a little bit of a showcase about to come up in terms of the great work that Jade's been doing in terms of what's coming soon, and then what's planned as part of what we want to be offering on the platform.
All right, I think we might pivot at that point, Ben, because we've got some other great questions that are coming through here. I think we've covered a large majority of them, but I think some of the other questions that are there, I think will be answered in the reveal. What's coming up. But we want to give away some free stuff for some. Oh no, before we get there, you've got.
Well, I just want to make sure. So before we close out on the 2.0, and I want to say also thank you, Al, for that great presentation that you just delivered for us. You've done an incredible job, and to the whole team, I've got to be honest, there was not hundreds of millions, but there was over 20 million data points that we were moving around. There's now over 57,000 people who use the platform. So in terms of this integration that we had to do and moving that sort of two-way data, it took months. Like we didn't expect it to take this long, but to James Austin and the team of developers, and to Ulrich and everyone, to Anand and all the people who put all of that information together, it has been extraordinary in terms of the work they've been able to do, and the seamless release off the back of all of the testing that we did, because we had to work through all of those. Effectively, there was 54,000 household records with thousands of data points in them that needed to be made sure that they were sequentially in the right order, so all the calculations worked and they were the right date. So to Al for putting in all those late hours, and to James and the team, we do want to thank you, mate, for all of that great work that you've done.
Well done, Al.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's just round out the MoneySMARTS 2.0 story by just going to the next slide. And we can see here, if you want to learn more about the tutorials, if you want to get the best out of it, if you want to understand basically how to do it, Al's put a series of tutorial videos together. I've also done a little bit more on the sort of fundamental analysis there. So there's also a series of videos that I've recently shot to be part of that particular story. So there's a lot of rich content inside. If you go to moorr.com.au/MoneySmarts, you'll start to see all of that information. Have a look around the website as well. You'll start to see just the amount of features and tools that we've got built onto the platform as part of that particular story. Now, in addition to that, you heard us mention the Make Money Simple Again book. I'll leave this on for about 10 seconds while you can get your phones out. And if you scan that, that'll ultimately give you the access to that particular book. And that is really the manual, the instruction manual and the playbook. Now, it was written over 5 years ago. We have now introduced the MyFinancials and the card layer, but the foundations are in there. The explanation of all of those terminologies and so forth that Al was mentioning, we've now integrated those in terms of the toolkit and the tool tips that Al was also mentioning about that as well. So, you can obviously go back and watch the replay if you haven't had time to download that to get access to that book. But here we go. This is the coming soon story in terms of what we wanted to just showcase with you in terms of what we're going to commit to in terms of building out this platform as really the number one go-to best-of-breed platform for money management and property management in Australia, built by Australians for obviously aspiring Australians. So the big one that I want to just mention, there's a couple, is transactions. So we're building this right now. So we've got a team of people working on this led by Al. And so you can see This is the information that we're going to be able to track merchant, descriptions, amounts, and then categorization, and we'll do some automotive or AI classification. So once you tell us the actions, the next time that transaction is detected, it'll automatically allocate that information into its right home. Because remember, we want three things. We want to save you time, we want to save you money, and we want to make you money with the money that we saved you. They're the critical things that Moorr is helping to do. So that's just a sneak peek in terms of what the web app version will look like. And check this out. This is some of the prototyping that we've done for the mobile. So to Bryce's point, if we want money on the go, this is the big part of what Moorr will be able to do. So anywhere in the world, you'll be able to get access to potentially your MoneySMARTS on the go and your information on the go as part of that. So they're the concepts that they're building out now and starting to code for, which is a really good story. Al, did you want to make mention on that as well?
Yeah, I think there was actually a question somewhere. I was trying to find it about whether or not it was possible to track the actuals for your living and lifestyle expenses. I think that was from Blake as well. So yeah, effectively, once we've got transactions in place, not only will your provisions also live directly within the cards, as you can see on the designs over there, but we'll also be bringing that through to the rest of the platform as well. So you'll be able to see transactions on all your expenses, and then eventually you'll start to see them on your borrowings, on your income, and on your bank accounts as well. So it'll be all the way throughout the platform. And we've really designed that in a way so that eventually, not only is it going to be ready for open banking, there's going to be some other ways potentially in which you can actually start to ingest your data. I'm not sure if you want to touch on that, Ben, or not, but a little bit more to come in the future.
Oh, we're experimenting obviously with AI and Opti in terms of detection and different types of documents as part of the management, the document management solution that we're also hoping to build into the platform. I mean, it is going to get to a very sophisticated platform. I think that's really important. I want to make sure that everyone understands at this point in time that in terms of the manual transactions, the MoneySMARTS, the simple tools that we're building, they'll be free forever. Obviously, with some of these other components, there is going to be considered costs associated with building those in. So at some point in time, there will be a subscription model that we'll be looking at in terms of some of those value adds that we need to bring in. Because, yeah, with bank feeds, they can be expensive in terms of that, because we're not necessarily dealing with the banks direct. We're using an aggregator as part of the plumbing that we're building to get all of that information under what's called the consumer data rights. Part of that particular story. So I just want to look, but again, if you don't let that be a limiter for you. Again, the manual, if you want to keep doing this, it'll be free forever. We've made that commitment to you in terms of MoneySMARTS will be free forever. MoneySTRETCH, MoneyFit, those tools will be free forever. In terms of also looking at Wealth Clock, Wealth Speeds, and some of those basic, that will be free forever. When we start doing aggregated insights and global performances and reports and those other things, that's when it gets a bit more sophisticated, and we'll start to have to obviously recover some of the costs in the investment that we're making to help you transform your life. So I just want to flag that with everyone so everyone's on the same page. Thanks for that, Al, in terms of sharing that insight. Okay, so let's go back, and we saw a couple of things there. We said there's the big transactions and bank feeds that we were talking about. Here's the property story, people. Ooh. So as Bryce was saying, we're building this for property investors because that's who we are. That's our community. But remember, if one day you might be an aspiring property, so you might be a budding investor, not there yet, could be 16, but one day you want to dream of owning a property at 22, like some of our great clients, and also our stories personally in terms of Bryce and I buying our first home in our early 20s. So let me just take you through a couple of these tools. So you can see here we've got a property dashboard and portfolio overview. We've got the cash flow tracking and analysis. Look at that Sankey chart right there. That's cool.
It was debatable earlier today. You thought that was a really spunky graph.
Oh, well, I know where all that money goes. I can see the rent coming in. I can see where my costs are going out.
I think it's effective, but I'm not sure it's sexy.
Oh, I think it is. Okay. And then we've got the equity and performance. So we start looking at the return on investment. If we're going to run this small business, private rental accommodation business, we want to know what those insights look like. Then you sort of get to the debt tracking and also the sort of debt overviews and where my debt's going. That chart shouldn't be the right way. If that is debt, it's going in the wrong direction. But you'll get a sense of these are obviously mock-ups. This one excites us a lot. Bryce and I when you've got several properties that you need to manage, there is key date reminders and also property events. So getting all of that into one sort of central repository for each individual asset, I like that a lot. I have visions of also an exclusive email address, which then brings that information straight into the platform. So we are talking about and
Ben, on that one too, I think that's probably the most understated key feature that we will have, because it's one of those things you don't realize how powerful it is and how much you need it until you go, well, oh, actually, that would be powerful, knowing in chronological order what my key dates are for my whole portfolio. So we've surveyed our audience, and importantly, that wasn't one of the top three. People are not, but then once they see it, they go, oh, I didn't realize that's what I wanted.
Well, certainly through our property division, we get a lot of feedback with more sophisticated investors where we bought multiple properties for them. And then, as I said, it gets a little bit more. So, reminders and alerts around fire, fire alarm,
smoke alarms,
inspections, regular inspections,
fires,
all of that sort of stuff will start to be smarter. And that's where Opti is going to come in terms of the smart assistant. Then what's the loan structure? Like, as you get more sophisticated, you've got a few loans running. So what is the purpose and what is the loan securities? Getting that breakdown. This one I love. This is basically the budgeted versus the actual. So we can see, okay, this is what we thought our little business will do. And this is, these are the expenses.
There was a question we got earlier around actual versus
There we go.
budget.
And then rich reports into, end of financial year cash flow report or a property net profit return report, capital sales report if we want to run those over time. So we're also building in at the moment. I got an update from the team today in regards to depreciation allowances and in terms of making sure that each one of those cards can then have depreciation. The assets can have depreciation associated with it where applicable. And then that leads into in terms of the tax tracker.
That was a question. We also got a question about how people could get their stuff off to their accountant.
Yep. So we're building all of those functionalities into what we want to do. So again, just making life easier for you. Show of hands for those people who would pay, $20 a month for something like this in terms of helping me do my bookkeeping and managing my investment properties.
Tax deductible too, man.
Tax deductible, because that's right. If you've got an existing property and this is what you're using to manage, that will be tax deductible. In terms of the property research, so not only is it for the existing properties, what about if I want to buy something new? What about if I can do some comparisons and get all of that other rich data that we have through our SRP Select Residential Property business ingested into here, all of those sales reports in terms of what we do there. So they are all of the concepts and pieces of advances and all of the widgets that we're going to be building inside the platform. So we've done a lot of groundwork in terms of reinventing the MyFinancial section and all that rich as-at technology in behind it. So now it's game on, and you'll start to see us releasing more and more of these features now that we've got those foundations in the 21st century rather than the 20th century. So that just gives you a bit of an idea in terms of all of those things that we're looking at introducing to you over the coming months and over obviously 2025 and beyond, because we really do want to make this story real, that this is Moorr is about that lifestyle by design, thinking about all of those plan to become what you plan to become moments and helping you achieve more with more. And I think from my point of view, Bryce, I just want to remind people, when you start to think about all of the things that are built into the app, there is no app in Australia. Like if you're running certain things, goal setting in one app, if you're running budgeting in another app, if you're running your property, you can ingest them all into one single
thing, isn't it? Like the amount of times that we talk to people about if they've got one property, they've got multiple properties, they've all doing it in a spreadsheet. So it's kind of just saying, as that slide says there, eliminating all those other ancillaries that you need, being able to have it all in one place. And it's kind of more is about putting all of your information in one safe and secure location to help you plan to become what you plan to become as you move through life's journey. So get rid of those apps, get rid of those spreadsheets, get rid of all those other files, because it's all in one location, it's all in the cloud, and it's on the go.
And that just rounds out this beautiful idea of help me save time, help me save money, and help me make money with the money that you help me save. And, Bryce and I, we've built a career in terms of wanting to help people and educate people around that. And, that's the great joy we get. We want to educate people and help people, and we build things to help you get on your journey, because we've been on this journey for several decades now. as property investors. So bringing all of this, we're doing it for our own benefit as well, mind you, as part of that story. What's this, folks? Take a snapshot. Thank you very much for that little bit of feedback for the team who is also assisting us today. So a couple of other things. Yes, you go.
Yeah, well, of course we want to grow, right? So we want you to share your feedback. So when you're using the feedback, there's a couple of places that you can do that. So down the bottom left-hand corner, you see something or you see a little bug on the next one, you'll see we want to get that feedback. So obviously it gets tested quite rigorously. Al and the team and all of our techs really test that thoroughly. But yeah, look, we don't see everything. So we want you to be our eyes and ears on the ground. We actually want to improve it and iterate it and get it to a point where it doesn't have any of those issues. So see something, report it, let us know. We'll fix it straight away.
Beautiful. And that then brings us to thank you for hanging around to the very end. We've got some more bonuses for you. So if you are listening to this for the first time and you're out to the end and you don't know about the Property Couch podcast, well,
Is that possible?
Well, it could be. There's plenty of people out there who don't know. So we obviously have a podcast every Thursday, and we have also a summarized episode on a Tuesday. So check that out. We are passionate about the education that we put out there to transform households as part of the meaningful work that we want to do. It gives us great pride, great privilege, great pleasure in terms of looking after that. And there's also a very, very cool property market reports that you can get your hands on. Normally, these are sold inside our Select Residential Property platform for about $39. So each one of these reports, go and grab one. If there's any market that you're looking at, they provide rich insights from demand, supply, scores, right through to all the different market metrics that we look at in terms of helping us understand those property markets. So scan that, scan me now picture, and that will give you a link in terms of where you can access those reports as well. And hopefully you'll get some great value out of that.
Fair bit of value, Ben, because if you had it stuck around right to the very end, and I know that not everyone can, but if you stuck around to the very end, you got access to our Tag Me course for $297. You got access to our free Make Money Simple Again book, which in the bookstores is about $30.
Yep.
And then now you get access to the free report there, which is another $39. So there's, what's that, close to $400 worth of value just for attending tonight.
Beautiful. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Your time is the most valuable asset you have in terms of coming along tonight. But of course, everything that we finish off with is about taking action. And so it's really important. There's the little QR code on the corner there. You can put your mobile phone up there, scan it. The onboarding experience on the mobile phone is lots of fun. You've got Opti that's going to be helping you to just basically get some of that basic information in there, and then the world opens to you. And similar to what we were saying before, then you can log on to the web version as well, and all of that rich data is then available to you through those two different windows of experience around the Moorr platform.
So there you go, folks. Make sure you get access to that. Get your phones out, get access to that. Go and play around with it. Very special thanks again to Alric for being a part of our presentation tonight. Thanks, as always, to you too, mate.
Likewise, sir.
Appreciate the energy and the effort that you put into it. And folks, if you've enjoyed today, can you share this with someone else that you know? Let them get access to some of the resources that we're putting in front of you, and let them get access to some of those future property resources that we're talking about as well. But we're excited to be able to provide a platform that allows you to manage your money in less than 10 minutes a month. Just a reminder, if you're not, to Ben's point, if you're not tuning in already, go to the Property Couch. That happens every Thursday at 3 p.m. And we're going to sign off by saying, folks, if you want to share this with your friends, go to moorr.com.au. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, everyone. And remember, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. See you soon, guys. Bye for now.